Michael Walsh, welcome back to Paper Napkin Wisdom. I'm really excited to continue to dig into this series that I think is so powerful for anyone trying to understand organizations. But, you know, like th there's so much that we've covered ground already. So, Paper Napkin Wisdom style, can you bring everybody up to date on where we are?
Sure. This is our third session. In the first session, we talked about um, there are underlying issues that lurk beneath each of the major milestones of growth. After you pass the first million, we said the major milestones that people tend to look for. If I've made a million, then my next goal, I want to hit two. Then if I hit two, I want to hit five. Then if I hit five, I want to go to 10. If I hit 10, I want to go to 20 million. And I'm saying at each of those milestones, 2, 5, 10, and 20, there are obstacles that we cannot see that lurk beneath that grab us. And we don't
Yes.
even know that they're there. We don't know what to do about them, and we don't even know a lot of times what grabbed us. And so, in our first session, we actually just talked about that, paper napkin style. In session number two, what we said is, well, as you grow, one of the issues as you grow is how you see your people. And we talked about relationships and how as you grow, the numbers of relationships like the impact of relationships multiplies. You know, if you're at four people, there are six one-on-one relationships. Well, if I'm at 16 people, we're up to 120 one-on-one relationships between and among everybody that's in there. And a 25-person company has 300 relationships. Well, if I
So
get
when you say exponential, just for everybody listening, 4 to 16 is four times more people,
yes,
right? Four times more people. 6 to 120, well, that's like 20 times more
right, yeah.
complicated.
If it was
So
four
it's
times
four
20, it
times
should be
and 20 times.
24, not
Yeah,
120.
exactly. So it's that's what we mean by exponential. Like it's one is growing way faster than the other as an exponent of the other, essentially. And that's the map.
Correct. And in a 25-person company, you do know everybody in the company. And there's literally 300 one-on-one relationships that are there. Now, if I go from 25 to 50, which again doubles, it goes from 300 to 1,225 one-on-one relationships. I mean, this thing, get magnifies. Now that's just one-on-one relationships. It doesn't count 2 to 1, 3 to 1. I mean, the permutations get like weird. Okay. And by the time I'm at a 100-person company, I'm almost at 5,000 relationships. It's actually 4,950 one-on-one relationships. And so with growth, every time you grow, you're going to outstrip your structures. Structures are designed for the size of a business that there are. You're going to outstrip those structures. And if you've got that many more people, the structures, here's the thing that people do is they actually try to bring in structures to control that many people. And that led to the question that we talked about last time, which is your business a well-oiled machine or is it an intelligent ecosystem? And the truth is everybody likes the idea of and a lot of people say both. But if you say both, you're really going to treat it like a well-oiled machine. A machine is there for the benefit of its owners and its users. Okay. If I own a car, it's myself, my wife, my family that use the car. So it's for them. People would be part of that machine. So we're not talking about the people that ride in it, the owners. We're talking about the actual people that form the business in this case. And I believe we talked about an event company in our last conversation and the implications on that. So what we're saying is that this gets really hairy, and fundamentally it starts to feel like this is incredibly overwhelming. See, if I have a machine, it's there for the benefit of the owners. An ecosystem is there for the benefit of everybody. And it's like, yeah, but if I have like a 100-person company, I've got almost 5,000 relationships. How do I make this for the benefit of everybody? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. So, and I think this is also something that's really important, right? Because little dots on your previous paper napkin, those are people. And
Yes,
people don't just go forward and back. We're not simple things, right? We're not basic. We're complicated things. And what I might want today is different than tomorrow because of a lot of different things, right? And I think that's what we're sort of digging in a little bit today, right?
correct. Well, in fact, I knew people that uh, owned stables and they were racing horses. And one of the comments that one of them made to me at one point, he said, "Listen, Michael, one of the things that I've learned, and it's too late for me, but stay away, because the wisdom that he shared with me, he says, never invest in anything that eats. And so he's talking about his horses because they get sick, they have problems, sometimes there's, malbehavior, you have to put them down. And there's a whole bunch of different, now, fortunately, we don't put people down, but anything that eats, isn't that every single service-based business in the
Yeah.
country? I don't care which country, pick a country, a service business is based in people.
Right.
You know?
So your paper napkin based on this is
Mhm.
the four driving influences of human behavior. And then you have them listed in columns. One and two, survive on top of thrive, which is two.
Yeah.
So one is survive, two is thrive. And then in the second column, which is three, connect, four, adapt.
Yes.
Why did you share that with me?
Well, here's the thing. If I look, you see, this thing gets overwhelming and highly complex, and it starts to become scary. No wonder people try to control people instead, because it feels in the short term a lot safer. But if I control people, we don't like to be controlled. We like our freedom. We like our autonomy. And I'm suggesting you don't actually have to do that. If you can understand the tenets of human behavior, now there's a bunch of them, so we don't want to become psychologists, but we have to understand some of the basics. If we understand these basics of human behavior and learn how they impact our people and as a result our businesses, by including those things, all of a sudden this gets really simple, really quick. And so that's the whole purpose. And I've identified these four driving influences. Now, they're not all of them. There's bazillions of driving influences to behavior. But these are four basic that are there, and we assume them. We don't even think about them. We don't include them in our decision making. But fundamentally, these four things are, we each have a core biological need to survive. That is our first priority in life, and it's biologically wired, it's set in. If we don't survive, nothing else really matters. Okay, so it's the core basic need that we have. Now we also have an innate desire to thrive. Now that takes us beyond merely surviving to find ways to constantly improve our well-being and create cool stuff. We're striving, humans strive for things. There's things we want and we go out and we get them. Now, you don't have to have all your survival needs handled for life before you can engage in thriving. Otherwise, why would a 5-year-old ever share a toy? Because at
Right.
5, you couldn't have all your survival needs for the universe handled. No, it's just that I don't feel threatened in the moment. And as a result, my natural inclination is to thrive. When I survive, it's about me or we, whoever I deem part of me or part of us. It could be my family. It could be the people in my company. It could be my spouse and I. It could be whoever it is. When I'm thriving, I'm looking at others. So surviving looks inward, thriving looks outward. And you can tell whether somebody's in survival or not. Are they busy protecting themselves? Are they actually contributing outside themselves? You're not going to contribute outside yourselves if you're busy needing to protect yourself. That's why,
That's
everybody talks
really
about creating.
observational, right? Like that's a very simple observation that you're
Well,
making there.
yep.
Okay, so for someone who's not used to doing this,
Uh-huh.
what's a quick way? Like, let's say this is a new skill.
Yeah.
They want to start to learn how to notice whether or not someone's in survive or thrive. How do they assess that quickly?
Do they talk about themselves or do they talk about other people? Are there comments about protecting themselves? How much money am I going to get? What about this? What about that? Or what kind of an environment am I in? Do we actually get to create cool things? I do a lot of work with services businesses that are based in the expertise of their people. So these are craftsmen or budding craftspeople. And so what you find is that, you know, if I'm all about protecting myself, it becomes really, you can tell if somebody's defensive. You can also tell if somebody's actually kind of relaxed in their own shoes. I mean, energy sounds like an esoteric woo-woo thing. But you know what? We have strong energy. There's times when our energy is depleted. I mean, it's really, really easy to read. You just have to look. Well, same thing about, am I caught in survival and protecting myself, or have I relaxed about survival and am I available to support and contribute to others? We all have both inclinations. If survival is handled, we'll see thriving. If survival's not, we won't. I mean, it's really that simple.
And it's about getting curious, right? Like if you're
Oh yeah,
not if you're not curious about it, it's not going to come over. It's not going to pick up a broom and hit you in the head until it's too late, right?
correct.
Unless you've really threatened survival, then it's going to pick up the broom and come and hit you. But otherwise, the reality is you just have to get curious. You have to ask someone, and that's all
Walk
it
into
is,
or just walk into an office and say hello. See who says hello back. See who
right?
pulls back, see who pulls into steps into the conversation. That doesn't mean that, I mean, there's also an extrovert introvert thing, but the fact of the matter is I've seen people go, oh, hello. You don't have to be some massive extrovert to respond to somebody. Nobody does as far as that's concerned. But if somebody goes, and then they just ignore you and they're like, who are you? Like it's actually easy to tell. The tip I would give is next time you're in any room anywhere, whether it's at an event or whether you go into an office or even in your home, see who's relaxed in their skin and looking at what they can do outside themselves and see who's busy protecting themselves. You know, it's actually not hard to see.
No, no, and it's just I love how you made it very simple. It's hello. It's a greeting. It's engaging. It's just you can do it when you do it. You can't do it by not doing it. So just do it. It's easy if you do it. It's not easy if you don't.
Yeah, and like you said, that curiosity, you just notice what you notice, see what you notice. But you say, are they seem to be caught in survival? Are they protecting themselves? Or are they actually they're not in it? Now they may not be in full abundant thriving, but at the same time, are they busy protecting themselves? Because as long as they're protecting themselves, they don't have access to anything else. Because our first job in life is to stay alive.
Mhm.
I mean, literally, if you're walking down the street, okay, you literally will look and before you even have a conscious thought, you see somebody else coming towards you on the street. The first thing you do is you check to see, your brain sorts to say, is this person a potential threat? I may have to protect myself against them. Is this person a potential friend? Because there's safety in numbers, first of all, but second of all, that's where we create and grow things. Okay. Or is this person a potential mate? Hmm. I promise you, biologically, we go there because one of our goals is to propagate the species. Now, this is not about propagating the species. There are people that are good at that stuff. That's not my area, so I just left that part out. Okay. So when I say connect, it's like, well, it's not about that.
It's not about that, but
That's a
it doesn't
different conversation.
happen. But you're not thinking about connecting with anybody if you're on an inward survival journey.
Correct.
You have to turn outward.
Unless it's to help you protect yourself. Like, when I listed three, connect, it's like it's been over 125 million years since humans were truly independent. We learned 125 million years ago that, when the first humans started showing up, uh, hypersocial species, it's far safer for people to guard against threats when we do it together. That's why when you see that major catastrophes and things go wrong, everybody reaches out to everybody else. Because it's like, well, if I
Mm.
was in that spot, I'd want somebody to help me. So of course I'll help them. I mean, that happens all the time. It's also, we can thrive way more effectively if we're connected. We know inherently that together we're stronger. So that's what I mean when I speak to connect. I'm not talking about, is this person a potential mate? We'll leave that one alone. And then the other thing we do have, the fourth thing we have is the ability to adapt. We can naturally adjust to changing environments, even the difficult ones, especially if our survival's at stake. Okay, we will do what it takes. There was no way anybody could think that we could work from home before the pandemic occurred. In fact, I talked to one client, he said, we had even talked about remote work and things like that. And we figured it would take somewhere between 6 months and a year to even try a pilot. And then the pandemic happened, and within 2 weeks, everybody's working from home, fully out, set up with their computers and all that kind of stuff. And the rules changed because they had to. It's now. Did everything work? No, not everything worked. I mean, some it overcame some people, but most businesses figured out how to survive using that. So we do know how to adapt. We do know how to adapt, even if we don't like the conditions that we have to adapt to. Okay. Whether that includes job losses, breakups, global challenges like economic downturns, not just pandemics. Okay. No matter what threatens us, humans find a way forward. So the ability to connect and the ability to adapt actually feeds both survive and thrive. So survive and thrive are on the left side because those are the core ones. And then connecting and adapting are sort of, I mean, there's a bunch of different human behaviors, but I found that if you just get to know these four and watch to see when and how they show up, it gets very clear very quickly, you know. Now it leads to another point, but I'm gonna have a sip of water first.
All right. So survive and thrive, connect and adapt. So
Yep.
what is the point of understanding these driving influences within your team? What do you do with them?
Well, here's the thing. If I know that people have these base needs, everybody talks about, oh, make it a safe environment for your staff and this and that. You're like, well, safe environment. Nobody's gonna get hurt. I mean, we're an office. But that's why things like, will they steal my ideas? Okay. Is it a positive place to work, or do I have to protect myself emotionally? Okay. Things like that. We go, yeah, whatever, just get the job done. And people are used to doing that. But it's not accurate because guess what? The survival gene kicks in. If you ignore it, you ignore it at your own peril. Like on the one hand, it's easy to see, but certainly once you get used to looking for it, but secondly, it has a huge impact of almost everything that happens in the day. You see, fundamentally, we have this delusion that we're logical and rational. And it's literally a delusion. Okay. We are completely irrational. We are completely emotion driven. And we have some logic. And that's actually a design feature. Think about it. Logic is too slow.
Yeah.
Emotion moves us really quickly. Gee, there's a bus coming at me. Well, what are the pros and cons of me? Too late.
Too late.
You don't have, whereas if you see a bus, you go, eek, and you start running. Okay. And you get out of the way of the bus. See, emotions are right there, but they link to survival. And
Yeah.
so if I know that that's there, and I know that emotions are what drive us, and the reason emotions drive us, that's not a design flaw of human, that's a design feature of human that keeps us alive. Now, everything has its side effects. Because I've seen people that are over emotional in certain situations, but then you start looking, you go, wow, that's not the emotional response I expected from this little issue. There's something bigger here. We may have triggered something. Now I don't have to go become a psychologist. I just know something's up. And for whatever reason, their survival feels threatened. Because if people feel in that they're safe, they'll play. If they don't feel safe, they don't have the bandwidth to play.
It's really, really interesting you say that. You use the terminology play. I was recently on a mastermind call and the facilitator asked a question.
Okay.
And she asked a question to the group. There were 10 or so of us on the call. It was one of the Zoom masterminds. And nobody stepped up. And I said, okay, I'll play. And you're right. I think everybody was worried, right? They were afraid of answering the question. And, in some kind of emotional way, we're conflating this with a real threat.
Or they may just look dumb. I've seen people be afraid to answer questions because they don't want to look dumb, and that sort of threatens their belonging to the group.
And so and then I did this video on, okay, I'll play, and how valuable it is just to go for it, to play, to jump into it. And
Yep.
in order to do that, it means that you're moving yourself into thrive and connect, right?
Yep. And you know the definition of play: give and take without intent.
Give
So
and take with
sometimes,
that. That's beautiful.
yeah, give and take without intent. That's play. It's like people just do things for the joy of doing it. It's fun. You throw a ball back and forth with your buddy. Okay. Well, why do kids play catch? There's not some intent. They just enjoy the process of that. And
Just
so,
being in it,
but
for
the freedom there is awesome.
it's powerful, powerful.
Mhm.
So, let's talk about adaptability, and I think that we sort of we underestimate how important it is because we do a lot of things. I think as humans, especially as leaders, will say, "Oh, that's not right. That's contrary to how we do things around here." we squash flexibility in favor of control a lot,
Mhm.
right? And one of the things we have to do in especially a scaling organization is recognize that we have to adapt. We have to be flexible. We have to change essentially everything all the time.
Well, it will change. I
Yeah,
mean, that's one of
yeah,
the things in life. It's just going to constantly change.
right. So with that in mind, how do we maintain, well, how do we assess where someone is, on their ability to adapt, sort of adaptability, but how do we support them in that?
The answer that comes up to my mind is to actually understand where they're at from their perspective. So
Right.
unless I put myself in their shoes, I can't tell where they're at. I can only tell my interpretation of where they're at if I keep myself in my own shoes, because I'll bring all my preconceived notions with me. Whereas the only chance I have of letting go of my own preconceived notion is saying, well, if I was in their shoes, what would where am I at right now? And where I wonder what this person's at. And you kind of get curious and you start asking questions about what about this, what about that, and you kind of listen for where they're at, as opposed to, we've all got these moral imperatives, these shoulds or judgments about how things need to go. And it's interesting because you can never influence anyone unless you understand what is already influencing them. And you can never connect with anyone while you're busy judging them, because they feel it and it breaks the connection. So if I try to influence people, people in sales do this all the time. They try to influence people, buy our stuff, you'd be so much better off, except they haven't really checked in with the other person to understand what's already influencing them. Well, if you know what's influencing me, do you think you'd be able to provide input or a contribution that would be more helpful or more resonant for me versus just guessing in the dark?
Mhm.
And
Yeah, of course.
if you were judging me, how well do you think I'll take any of it?
Or if you command me,
Oh, you
I'll tell
command
you
me.
where
It's
to
like,
go.
yeah, then if you tell me, I feel told.
Yeah.
you know, and even if I accept what you tell me, now I've parked my own good discernment at the door, and I'm actually just doing what you want. And then if there's a win, it's obviously yours because it was your idea, and I become a robot. And this is where people get stuck in this notion of being part of this thing called a well-oiled machine
Hmm.
we talked about last time. So I mean, there's so many dimensions to this thing. It's kind of cool actually, but I got to tell you, it's also very simple. Are they in
Right.
survival? Are they feeling they need to protect themselves? What does it take? What is important to them? Is what's important to them is to protect themselves against things that are wrong? Is that's what top of mind? Or is what's important to them to create something cool? And then what are the underlying things that'll change behavior? This is not that hard to see, but I do have to pay attention. But it's just
And you
understanding
could
where
just
they're
ask
coming
them,
from.
right? Like you could just
Yeah.
ask, what's
And
important
that's
to you about this?
exactly, yeah.
So is the framework, so let's talk about the framework of how anybody in an organization can understand where their team is in the four driving influences of human behavior and what to do. Where do they start? What's the first step?
Well, we have lots of steps that are coming. We have a whole framework that's coming
Exactly.
on this one. But um, get to know them. What was it about this job that caught their attention? What was it? What is it that they'd like to do? Money aside, what would they like to accomplish while they're here? What would they like to learn? Where do they see themselves growing? Let's say if we were sitting here 3 years or 5 years or 10 years from now, let's say you're a decade older. Okay. What's life look like from your shoes a decade from now? Now, one of the things you get very quickly is, does this person are they forward thinking in terms of like, do they have that kind of a picture set up? And if I can't do it in a year or in 10 years, then I might go down to 5 or 3. 3 years is a really, really powerful thing. Um, Dan Sullivan, for the last 25 years has run a program called Strategic Coach, and he actually has this thing called the what he calls the R factor question, a relationship based question, and it actually his reference point is 3 years, and uh, you know one of the things that's really powerful about that is that 3 years is far enough away that you can still see it and it's close enough that you know that what you do this month or this quarter or next quarter will impact it. And so I'm not going to go into the details of this stuff, but it's interesting. The 3 year time frame is quite valuable. 1 year is not enough. Like you don't seem to have enough time in 1 year, but over a course of 3 years, you can. In fact, Bill Gates, when he was doing his planning, he would never look at anything shorter than 18 months, because 18 months is long enough you can do something, but it's short enough that you better get hustling now. So a lot of times when people are looking into the future, they actually say, what does it look like? But when I listen, if I say, what's the future you see? If they're giving me words back that are based in protecting themselves, then I know that that's what's top of mind for them. If they're based in words that are accomplishment and things they'd like to achieve, or places they'd like to go, or people they'd like to meet or collaborate with, or things they'd like to learn, then it tells me again where their primary interest is. You just start asking people different types of questions. You'd be surprised at how quickly you notice what are the best things that are happening in this company.
Mhm.
And then you listen. Do they say, well, at least this isn't happening anymore, and well, that used to happen a lot here, that's there, and you know not a lot other than that. And you're like, okay, so I just heard a bunch of stuff that's wrong, and I heard somebody who's worried a lot about stuff that's wrong. Ask somebody else, it's like, are you kidding? This place is so cool. We take really good care of our clients. Our clients really love us. We actually get to participate with really interesting people, and we can really make a difference for them. Well, guess where that person's focused? Now,
No.
it's not that there's a right or wrong. These are states of mind that change constantly, but you want to know where they're at right now.
And the reason why you want to know where they're at is because of the title, right? For driving influences of human behavior. So you can go
Correct.
around and try to control behavior, and then we start out off the top, right? Humans are overwhelming and highly complex. We don't like to be controlled, but we can be influenced. And these are four very big driving influences. If we know where they're at, we can help to influence what they might do, and that's their behavior, right?
Yeah. And if somebody's in survival mode, I'm not going to get very far unless I can help them move past survival mode. And because it's a state of mind, it's not a permanent fixture thing. It doesn't take that much to do that. You can actually just start working with them, and you can say, well, what would a brighter future, or what would need to be in place for you to be able to feel relaxed about growing? And then you just find out, and then you can work with them to help them create or build that. And I've seen that for people in all different levels of a business, whether it's somebody just coming in, fresh out of school, or whether it's a middle manager, or whether it's a senior leader, or whether it's a CEO or a company owner. You know, um, it's interesting to see, and it's not like they get better sometimes you get better with different aspects. You get better at aspects of the business just because you get experience when you're growing a business. But and that's why, even though the problems continue to get bigger, your skill level grows at least as quickly, if not faster. And that's why people, even though the business grows, quite often they feel like they're more accomplished in the face of it. The thing that I find that's missing too often is, just by not understanding some of these things, they end up putting in a lot more energy than they need to. The question is, how do you actually get back your freedom? How do you get back this feeling of joy, this feeling of really having satisfaction at what you're accomplishing? Now, making money is part of that for sure, but it's not the only part of the game.
No, no, and I think that's what this is all about. So, if there's a final thought we want to give people about this napkin as step three in our journey, what would that be?
Notice whether somebody's in survival or whether they're thriving. If they're in, and then uh, understand that we have a natural tendency to connect. So usually that's not that hard. Appreciate that people will adapt to changing environments. But if I can help people move past survival into thriving and into contribution with each other, collaborative environments are far more profitable than non-collaborative environments. By investing the time in helping people get past their survival needs, all the rest, those other three dimensions, can work really, really well.
That's awesome. All right. Thanks, Michael.